It is bull versus bear time. So before we get to your example trades, we got to get each of your thoughts on Nvidia. Joe, I'll start with you. Your take on Nvidia.
Earnings are May 20th, so we got 2 weeks to go. I think right now Wall Street is expecting for about an 86.6 billion in Q2 revenue. These are huge numbers. That's about 85% year-over-year growth. I think you said it right, Diane, in that are we in this second inning or maybe mid innings, if you will, in terms of kind of the AI play, because for the first couple of years it was all chip processing and building the chips to power the compute needed for this, and now we're starting to get into the inference stage. And does that mean that Nvidia won't be the major player? I don't believe that that's necessarily the case, but I do believe, as we mentioned in the last segments, there's more players in the space. And competition's catching up, and I think the bigger thing is that the hyperscalers are now building their own chips. I mean, look at what Google's doing with its TPU, for inference, and where we are in that stage. And I think that is something that the street is looking at. There's a reason probably that Nvidia is up 10% in the last month, as opposed to an AMD that's up 60%, or an Intel that's basically up 100%. I mean, it's just, sometimes it's a popularity contest. Sometimes it's just where is the demand and where's the good story? I don't know. I mean, I still see numbers that 83% year-over-year revenue growth, 60 to 70% earnings growth, and an evaluation that still looks relatively cheap. The stock did rally to 216 not that long ago before pulling back to around 198. It just bounced off its kind of 21-day exponential moving average right there at around 198. It looks like it's having a decent day today, and if it can build off of some of that momentum, it might have an opportunity to go back and challenge those highs again.
Kevin, I got to use one of your phrases for the number that Joe just gave, 86.2 billion. Those are video game numbers. All right, Kevin, your take on Nvidia.
Yeah, Diane and Joe, I think we have to apologize to our viewers. We're temporarily renaming this segment Bull versus Raging Bull, because I don't know how you could be bearish this name right now with everything that we see going on in these markets. So I think it's going to be real tricky. I went out this morning and I really started looking. What's the difference between AMD and Nvidia? And AMD's got the CPUs, right? But the GPUs, which is by far the most popular part of AI right now, is 90% driven by Nvidia. And so not only all the incredible money that they're making, competition, Joe is 100% right. Competition is eventually and starting to creep into this business. That said, remember, there's a Vera Rubin chip sitting on the horizon that's about to start, which is even better than all these. And this has happened before. AMD starts to creep up to Nvidia. Nvidia comes out with their new chip and pulls away further. Do I know that's going to happen? I have no idea. But there's a better chip waiting on the horizon for Nvidia. Joe's right. They have earnings on May 20th. I think that this is going to be a fascinating next couple weeks, just because of what just happened in AMD and the crazy valuations that we find ourselves in. So, listen, it's one of those situations where Joe, Kevin talk. You want to be bearish on Nvidia? Nope, not me. Okay, well, so that's kind of where we are with this stock. And you're right, it has underperformed the popularity, possibly over-owned, but certainly, I mean, it's worrisome, the numbers that they may be able to put up in a couple weeks.
neither of you guys wanted to pick up the hot potato on that one, so it's so Jay, it feels like the wind is at the back of the bulls. So what's
sure
your take?
is. It's been a nice wind. Earnings season, we have just seen consistent beats across the board. The fears of inflation really impacting the bottom line has not come through in most of these conference calls. We're seeing some pockets where it's a concern, but this market has kind of defied some logic. When it went down, it didn't go down as much as people had feared with all the headlines. You know, we go back Venezuela, we go back to the SCOTUS decision, and of course the big one, the conflict with Iran and rising gas prices. Yet the market has been able to disconnect, focus on earnings, and focus on the leadership that took us up to these levels before we receded, and that was technology.
So I'll get into tech just a minute. Higher highs, you know, that we're seeing in the market. So it feels like there's kind of a reset that's happening along the way. The volatility's pulled back. VIX is sitting around 17 right now. So it does feel like it's still risk on. Let's talk about over in the tech. The AMD, big rally there, rally in semis, memory names.
Yeah.
What's your take on that? Are we getting ahead of our skis?
Well, I think we are finally starting to get ahead of our skis. It has been risk on, and when you see these DRAM stocks, the memory stocks, the SanDisk, the Seagates, the Microns, go up as much as they have, granted, it's warranted because the earnings have been so great, but now it's getting a little parabolic, and they should pause at these levels. I wouldn't go chasing these names, but when you see these names pause, what you want to look for is a rotation into other names that have been lagging. Can we get back into the software names? Can we start to see a Microsoft come back? Can a Meta come back? Come a Palantir, which had fantastic earnings and was not rewarded for it? Can the sentiment return to some of those names? So what I'm looking for is, all right, a little pause in the momentum there, but this risk-on environment, it's going to. Stocks that have been risky in the past. We're looking at nuclear stocks catching a bit again. Quantum stocks, remember them last October?
Yes, we've been quiet.
They're starting to come back. They've been beaten down. So we're seeing rotation intra-sector, and then other sectors like industrials continuing to do well. We've seen the defense sector, ironically enough, when the conflict started on February 28th, which was a Saturday, the peak was March 2nd, that Monday we opened trading in the ITA, the defense sector ETF, and those names have gone down. They've gotten down almost 20%. This could be a level where we rotate back into those names as, the conflict ends and we see a supply shortage in some of these defense contractors. So I want to see rotation into industrials led by defense coming up.
Okay, so one more quick question on tech. AMD is outperforming Nvidia.
Sure is.
Do you think Nvidia is at a point where it could catch some more love again?
It should. Nvidia has become slow and steady now, which you've seen out of an Apple, which is more expected because they don't have that revolutionary revenue spend and these ridiculous revenue numbers. I think Nvidia is cheap here. I have seen it consolidate over several periods in the last 4 years, not this long. It's finally breaking out to new highs. Earnings in 2 weeks, so we'll probably see the next leg higher led by Nvidia, but it could be keeping us at these levels, not taking us the next leg higher as we rotate back into that. Broadcom making new highs. So I think for the long-term investors, if you're upset that this stock that's been a juggernaut for years isn't off to the races like it has been, it's a $4 trillion company. It's the biggest company in the world. It will get to $5 trillion. If it's not there, it's a skosh below right now. But Nvidia, to me, will remain the leader, and it will be rewarded in time if you're not happy with the reward you've had over the time period, the last 2 to 5 years. If you've been in this stock, I would never sell that stock. I think it is the leader and will continue to be, but you're seeing catch up because of the parabolic spend that we've seen in these memory names. Has just been unbelievable.
All right, let's get into the example trades. Joe, your approach first.
So I guess I'm the Pesci and he's the De Niro in the Raging Bull trade. I'll let him keep the Raging Bull. Mine's bullish. In that it's a kind of a broken wing butterfly, if you will. It's in the May 22nd expiration. So what does that mean? That means you got earnings built into this trade. And the reason I picked that expiration is a couple of reasons. Number one, you're buying the 205 strike. you're selling 2 of the 215s, and then you're buying 1 of the 220s. So it's a butterfly, but you have a $10 wide spread on the bottom side and $5 wide on the upside. So what happens here? Well, any type of butterfly, especially like an earnings butterfly, if you get the move to that short strike, and in this example, that's that 215 strike, you get the move to that strike, and after earnings comes out, volatility collapses, and if it stays around that strike, that's a nice win for the trade, because now you're short 2 of those 215s, where the implied volatility is going to be, coming in quicker than it does at the 205s and the 220s, and that actually does well for this trade. Now, that's not assuming huge upside from where we're at right now. Basically, I'm buying the at the monies and selling $10 out of the monies. So, like I said, it's a bullish trade, but it also kind of keeps it within about a 4 to 5% range. The expected move is beyond that. So, even if it does blow beyond that, you can see on the risk graph here that you still have some upside, but it gets capped at 220. So if you believe that there's more upside to this, what do? You extend those strikes out. You can do the 210s versus the 220s and the 225s, or you can make a lot of adjustments to this. This is just kind of looking at it at the money versus about taking it back to the 52-week high, and then looking at only selling a $5 increment on the upside. So I still have the ability to make some money if the stock even goes higher.
Joe, this is one of those trades that we talk in our discussions often about butterflies, and the frustrating nature of butterflies is to get the direction right, have it blow past your strike, and all the profits that you had, you lose, and it comes all the way back down. We just saw AMD go 2 times the expected move. So that's what you have to at least understand and be ready for when you look at trades like this. And this type of butterfly, skewed where it's long a $10, short a $5, if you look at that extended profit graph, it keeps you profitable on this trade, Joe. So the risk on the trade would always be whatever debit you pay on it, and you're looking for a move to that short strike. Now, Joe, I went a little more aggressive in terms of my look, and that is, and this is something that we talk about in our advanced option strategy classes, where I'm going further than the earnings event week, right? And I'm putting on a diagonal that is before the event week, and then or after the event, and then before the event, with a chance, with a possibility to extend duration right into the event. Now, it doesn't look pretty right now because I'm doing a $5 call diagonal, buying the May 29th after the May 20th expiration. I'm buying the 205 call, pretty much at the money, selling just this week, 2 more days, 210 call. Now, I'm spending $8.75 on that because the longer dated implied volatility is slightly elevated, and it costs more, and you're buying time. Now, this is a trade until Friday that has to be managed slightly, and we talk about this a lot, because you're spending $8.75 for a $5 wide diagonal. It could lose money if it were to go screaming through that before Friday. After that, you extend duration, you move the strike further out, and these numbers get a little better. And then you move into the event expiration, and the credit, the rolled credit, becomes quite large, and you really chip away at the net debit. But Joe, this is one that we talk about in our advanced option seminars as a way to look at it and understand why you're paying more than maybe even the width of the strikes.
I think that's a really critical point, and I think ultimately you're going to get, you have the potential to get a couple rolls in there, which will reduce that debit cost overall. The other thing that's important about this, and you mentioned this, is the flexibility, right? If you start to see Nvidia really start to move up, and you have the ability to roll that 210 call out and up to the 215 to the 220s as you're getting closer and closer to the earnings event, you're doing that. What you hope for is for a credit, as long as it doesn't move too fast. But I think ultimately at some point, as we get into that earnings cycle, you're going to have to make the decision on whether or not you want to stay bullish. But the diagonal gives you not only that embedded kind of vertical spread, but at the same time, because you do have the flexibility for multiple rolls, it can reduce that debit cost along the way, making it, at some point, if you get enough rolls, potentially cutting this cost down dramatically.
Yeah, I mean, there's an age-old adage on Wall Street that says to sell in May and go away. I believe that stay in May and let AI lead the way is more appropriate for this year.
So it's all about AI.
It's all about AI. Despite the war in Iran, despite rising oil prices, despite lingering inflation fears, AI revolution continues. And as we learned from Q1's earnings report, these hyperscalers continue to spend billions of dollars to build out their AI infrastructure.
How can you say that the peace process, which is still touch and go, and
yes.
we really don't know just yet about this one-page proposal and how the Iranians are going to react to it. And we've seen this movie before where there
yes.
was hope and then it's dashed.
Oh, yeah.
But how can you say that today that is not an issue, especially when you look at West Texas Intermediate now well below $100 a barrel?
I think the prospects for resolution we're getting closer and closer to, and once we do see some tankers move through the Strait of Hormuz, oil prices ease, but not back down to $67 overnight. That could take months to get to. So inflationary pressures may stay for some point in time, but gas prices should start to ebb down, and that changes consumer sentiment because 70% of our economic growth comes from consumer spending. When consumers have more to spend, the economy grows.
We right now are seeing a huge rally on sort of buy on the rumor.
Yes.
We know what supposedly follows, the old Wall Street adage, sell on the news.
Yes.
What are some sell on the news stocks if and when there is a signed peace proposal on both sides?
Yes.
What do you say get rid of at the moment?
Yeah, I think you have to look at the energy sector, Liz. It's up 33% year to date, the top performing sector in the S&P 500. But if we do get a resolution in Iran, if tankers start flowing again, if oil prices start to come down, some of those energy names are not going to perform as well as other names.
Look at the XLE, the Spider Energy here.
Yeah.
It's down over the past week, just 1.5%. And here we go, one day down 4 1/3%.
It's a very crowded trade right now. But then I look at some of the big integrated players like a Chevron, like an ExxonMobil, that are going to be involved in the reconstruction efforts, not only in Iran, but also in Venezuela. They're going to have staying power. Some of those other names that have just been riding this energy tailwind, they're more susceptible to downside.
I was just looking at China stocks.
Yes.
Bilibili, Alibaba, JD,
yes.
They are rallying big time. Now, the Iranian foreign minister today was in China, and China apparently put out a statement saying that they are encouraging
yes.
the peace process to move forward.
Now, do we believe that? I'm not sure. But I do know China's in trouble. Not only do they need our advanced chips, but they also now need our oil. So that's going to bring them back to the trade negotiation table with President Trump. Short term, that could be seen as a big question mark. Long term, that could be a net positive for the U.S. and perhaps making some of those Chinese investments more attractive to U.S.